We rejected you, gave you nothing. Why would you help us?
Because you are my brothers. That has never changed.
Once upon a time, the village of Umuoha sat between three gentle hills, and a narrow river that glittered like a long silver snake whenever the sun rested on it. The people of the village were proud farmers, strong-armed, loud-voiced, and always ready to boast about how many baskets of yam they could harvest in a single season. But in all of Umuoha, one family stood taller than the rest, the family of Motsi Okorie, father of 7 sons, and 1 girl. Her name was Nneka. Everyone in the village knew she was the only daughter, and people always said, "Oh, Nneka is a blessing. A daughter brings warmth to a house full of men." But her brothers didn't always remember this. Nneka grew up running barefoot on warm red earth, helping her mother cook, carrying firewood, and learning to trade small items in the village market. Unlike her brothers, she didn't spend her days wrestling in the fields or climbing palm trees to show off. She was gentle but sharp-minded, quiet but observant. She noticed everything: who was honest, who was greedy, who was lazy, and who worked hard. Her father, Motsi Okarie, adored her. He often told her stories under the mango tree in their compound, teaching her that true wealth was not land or barns full of yam, but wisdom and kindness. But when he fell sick and passed away, the house grew colder. His 7 sons, Obina, Akena, Kolechi, Chism, Ikin, Sokima, and the youngest, Chibik, gathered with their uncles to divide the inheritance. The air smelled of dust and dried tears, and the whole village whispered about the great wealth Okorie left behind. The uncles brought out mats and placed cowries in neat piles. They listed lands, barns, goats, tools, cloth, and all the things a prosperous farmer could own. Nneka watched silently from a corner. Nobody asked her to come closer. Nobody asked what she thought. 7 sons, 1 uncle declared proudly. That means 7 shares. The brothers nodded. None of them looked at their sister. But what of Nneka? Asked the oldest uncle weakly, as if the question itself was a burden. Obina shrugged. Daughters marry and leave. Whatever we give her will only go to her husband's family. Let us divide father's land properly. The others murmured in agreement. Nneka's heart squeezed, but she said nothing. She remembered her father's voice: "Wisdom brings patience, my daughter." Her mother wiped her eyes quietly. She wanted to speak, but tradition pressed heavily on her tongue. And so, Nneka received nothing. No land. No tools. No animals. Not even a small pot from the kitchen where she had cooked for the family countless times. The brothers scattered into their new lives. Each took their share and returned to their farms with pride. The barns were full, the land was rich, and their confidence was louder than ever. But seasons change. Rivers shrink. Fortune bends when people least expect it. That year, the sky over Umuoha began to change. Clouds stopped visiting. Rain forgot the road to the village. The earth cracked under the sun's heat, and farms that once buzzed with tubers became dry, hopeless fields of dust. The brothers struggled. Their barns emptied. Their yam seeds failed. Their animals grew thin. Pride began to slip from their shoulders. But Nneka, who had married a humble, wise trader named Omego, was living a very different life. Her small house was always stocked with food. Her storehouse, filled with goods from her husband's journeys, never ran dry. Her yard was shaded with fruit trees she had planted herself. And her heart, still soft and generous, carried no bitterness toward her brothers. One by one, fate would lead her brothers back to her doorstep. And the lesson they would learn would shake the whole of Umuoha. The drought did not arrive like a roaring storm. It crept slowly, quiet, clever, almost polite. At first the villagers of Umuoha thought it was nothing serious. The rain simply delayed a week, then 2, then a month. But by the time 3 moons passed without a single drop, people began to look up at the sky with fear instead of hope. The beautiful green of Umuoha turned a tired brown. The leaves on the mango trees curled at their edges. The river lost its shine and became shallow enough for children to walk across. Even the birds flew away, searching for better places to sing. Nneka's 7 brothers felt the drought more than most. Obinna, the oldest, had always boasted about his vast yam farm. People called him the king of yams, and he enjoyed the title too much. But now his once full barn echoed hollowly whenever he stepped inside. Dust coated his yam shelves. Rats had left long ago, there was nothing left for them to eat. Ikenna, the second-born, was known for his large goat herd. He loved showing off their size and strength. But with no grass and no water, the goats grew thin, bleated endlessly, and collapsed one after another. His pride crumbled with them. Kolechi and Chisum, the middle brothers, began arguing day and night. They blamed each other for every failed seed and dried field. Their quarrels shook the compound until their mother had to shout for peace. Ikin and Sokima, the quiet ones, worked from dawn until the stars came out, hoping their sweat alone could bring life to the cracked earth. But even their strong hands could not convince the soil to grow anything. And Chibik, the youngest, walked around in confusion. He was barely a man and had inherited a small but fertile patch of land. Now it was nothing but dry powder. He didn't know how to survive a disaster he had never seen before. Their mother, Mama Uzoamoko, prayed daily for the rains to return. Her voice cracked from calling on God and the ancestors to remember her children. But the sky stayed empty. Meanwhile, in her own home far on the other side of the village, Nneka lived differently. She had planted fruit trees early in her marriage, orange, pawpaw, banana trees with roots deep enough to find hidden water underground. Her husband, Omego, was a careful trader who traveled from village to village buying goods when they were cheap and selling them when they were needed. And Nneka, with her sharp mind, kept records, organized stores, and planned ahead. Her compound was not luxurious, but it was stable, steady, peaceful. The drought reached her too, of course, but she and Omego had prepared. Their barns were stocked. Their well was deep. And her fruit trees still gave small but steady harvest. But Nneka's heart was not proud. She remembered her brothers, how they used to chase her around the yard when she was little, how they lifted her up when she cried, how they protected her from unruly village boys. Yes, they had denied her a share, but her memory held more than just hurt. One hot afternoon, as she peeled cassava under the shade of a guava tree, she noticed dust rising on the road. Someone was approaching. A tall figure, shoulders slumped, clothes loose from weight loss. When he came close enough, she recognized him. Obinna. The once confident oldest brother now looked like a man carrying invisible stones on his back. His feet dragged. His cheeks were hollow. His eyes darted around her compound as if afraid she would chase him away. Nneka, he said quietly, almost whispering her name. She rose to her feet immediately. Obinna, you look tired. Come and sit. He swallowed hard. My barn is empty. My children, they go to bed crying. He paused, his voice shaking. I know I have no right to ask you anything. But I need help. Nneka said nothing for a moment. She looked at her brother's face, the same brother who once told her she deserved no inheritance. But the pain in his eyes was real. The hunger in his bones was real. And she remembered that kindness was heavier than anger. Obinna, she said finally, you will not leave my house hungry. She led him inside, served him hot yam porridge with oil and vegetables, and watched as he ate slowly, as if he still feared the plate might vanish. Then she went to her storeroom and packed dried yam slices, gari, and smoked fish for him. Obinna tried to refuse the last bag, ashamed. I cannot repay. You are my brother, Nneka said simply. And our father taught me that family must stand like the roots of a tree, stronger together. Obina bowed his head, tears warming his cheeks. When he left her home that day, Nneka felt something shift in the wind, something she couldn't name. She did not know that Obina was only the first. More footsteps would soon find their way to her doorstep. One by one. Day after day. Until every brother came with a story that twisted the fate of their family in ways none of them expected. And Nneka's own heart would be tested, not by drought, but by memory. Obina's visit was only the beginning. The drought tightened its grip on Umuoho like a giant hand squeezing the life out of the land. The villagers who once laughed loudly now whispered anxiously. Markets that used to overflow with yams, peppers, and palm oil now displayed only dried scraps and dusty baskets. The air grew so hot that people woke in the night just to sit outside and breathe. And Nneka's compound, quiet and shaded with fruit trees, soon became a place where fate led hungry footsteps. 2 days after Obina left, Nneka was sorting beans in front of her kitchen when she heard another uneven step approaching. This time it was Ikena, the second born. He had always been the proudest of the brothers, tall, neat, and known across the village for his strong herd of goats. But now he moved slowly, his walking stick trembling in his hand. His wrapper hung loosely around him, and his eyes were red from sleepless nights. Nneka felt her chest tighten. Ikena, she called out softly. He looked up, startled, then ashamed. I did not come to trouble you, he stammered. I only came because I no longer have goats, Nneka. The drought took them. I buried the last one yesterday. He wiped his face quickly, pretending it was wet. My wife and children have not eaten since morning. Nneka guided him to a stool. She noticed how he avoided looking at her, as if afraid to see disappointment in her eyes. Ikena, she said gently, you do not need to explain anything to me. But he shook his head. I must explain. When father died, I should have spoken for you. I should have told the others that daughters deserve a share too. But I kept quiet. I was wrong. His voice cracked. Nneka's heart softened even more. She cooked rice and stew for him, then filled a bag with gari, beans, and palm oil. When he stood to leave, he bowed his head deeply. You have saved my family. You are my brother, Nneka replied simply. Come whenever you need help. 3 days later, while Omego was preparing to travel to a nearby town for trade, 2 figures appeared at the gate, Kelechi and Chism. The brothers who used to argue so loudly now stood quietly like children caught doing something wrong. Their clothes were patched, their stomachs flat, their eyes hollow. Even their shadows looked thin. Nneka, Kelechi began. We are hungry, Chism finished quickly, too tired to pretend. Their fields had dried completely. They had sold their tools, even their mother's spare cooking pots, hoping to survive the drought. But nothing worked. Hunger had swallowed their pride. Nneka welcomed them inside too. She fed them roasted plantain and pumpkin sauce, and as they ate, their shoulders relaxed, and the heaviness in their faces lifted a little. She remembered how these two always teased her when she was younger, hiding her slippers, tying her wrapper to a tree branch, laughing loudly when she chased them around the compound. Now they sat quietly, humbled by life. Before they left, Nneka gave them enough food to last a week. As they walked away, she heard one whisper, "We do not deserve her." The other replied, "But she still helps us." Their words floated in the air long after they were gone. A week later came Ikin and Sokima, arriving together at sunset. The sky behind them glowed orange-red, as if the sun itself was tired of the heat and wanted to fall asleep early. These two had always been the gentle brothers, the ones who worked hardest and complained least. When they approached Nneka's compound, they did not speak. They simply stood at the gate and looked at her with eyes full of quiet desperation. Nneka hurried to meet them. Their story was simple but painful. They had planted cassava 3 times, and 3 times the ground rejected it. Their drinking well had dried up, Their mother was ill, and they had nothing left to cook for her. Nneka's breath caught. Mama Uzomoko was sick and starving. She did not waste a second. She filled baskets with yam slices, dried vegetables, gari, smoked fish, and a small calabash of honey for their mother. "Take this home," she said firmly. "And come back tomorrow for more. Mama must eat." Ikin tried to speak, but tears rolled down his cheeks instead. Sokima placed a trembling hand on his sister's shoulder. "If father can see you now," he whispered, "he is proud." Their gratitude stayed in Nneka's heart long after they disappeared into the twilight. But the brother who came last, his visit would change everything. Chibik, the youngest, had always adored Nneka. When they were children, he followed her everywhere like a shadow. He brought her flowers, shared his snacks, and even told people, "Nneka is the smartest in our house." So when he arrived at her home one night, with moonlight shining on his still strict face, Nneka felt a deep ache inside her chest. "Sister," he whispered, voice shaking. "I did not want to come. I tried, I really tried, but I can't survive this drought." He looked thinner than anyone she had seen. The drought had struck him the hardest. His land had dried. His firewood had run out. His cooking pot had cracked from too much heat. Nneka pulled him into an embrace. "You should have come earlier," she murmured. "No," he sobbed. "I wanted to be strong. I didn't want you to think I needed you." Nneka stepped back and wiped his face. "Needing help does not mean weakness, Chibik." She brought him inside, fed him a warm meal, and gave him a place to sleep for the night. But as she watched him rest peacefully on a raffia mat, a strange feeling washed over her, a feeling she couldn't name. Because something about the order in which her brothers came. Something about the way each arrived alone. And something about the drought itself felt more than just coincidence. It felt like a lesson. Something bigger. Something she was meant to discover. And she would, very soon. For fate had not yet finished its work. Something unexpected was coming, something that would bring the entire village of Umuoho to her doorstep. The drought dragged on for weeks, then months, gripping the village of Umuoho like a stubborn spirit that refused to leave. People whispered that perhaps the gods were angry, that perhaps someone had offended the ancestors, or maybe the sky had simply forgotten them. But inside Nneka's home, something very different was happening. Her compound had quietly become a refuge. Every morning, a different brother would return, sometimes for more food, sometimes for encouragement, sometimes just to sit under her guava tree and rest their tired hearts. At first they came one by one, ashamed and embarrassed, but after a while they began to run into each other. And it was then that the truth slowly formed in their hearts. Their sister had become the pillar they all leaned on. As her brothers came and went, villagers watched curiously. "That is Nneka, the one they gave no inheritance," some whispered. "Yet she is the one helping all of them survive." "But how?" others asked. "What magic does she have?" It wasn't magic. It was wisdom, planning, kindness, and a heart steady enough to carry a family. One morning, after helping Sokima load bags of gari onto his bicycle, Nneka stepped outside and froze. A group of elders stood at the front of her compound, including the very uncle who had announced her exclusion years ago. Nneka wiped her hands on her wrapper and walked calmly toward them. The oldest elder stepped forward. His voice was gentle but heavy with regret. "Nneka, daughter of Okari, word has reached us of how your brothers now depend on you. How you feed them. How your home remains standing while others have fallen." He paused and looked at the other elders, then back at her. "We wronged you." This time, even the birds stopped singing. Before Nneka could speak, she heard more footsteps behind her. Her 7 brothers. All of them. Together. For the first time since their father's burial. Their mother was with them too, leaning on Ikin's arm for support. Obinna stepped forward, shoulders trembling. We came to make this right. One by one, each brother walked up to Nneka and knelt. Obinna bowed his head. We took everything. You took nothing. Ikenna placed his palm on the ground. And yet, when life pressed us, you opened your hands. Kelechi and Chisom spoke together, voices shaking. You gave us food when we had none. Strength when we had lost ours. Ikin's voice cracked. You saved our mother. Sokima's eyes filled with tears. You saved us. Chibik, the youngest, crawled forward and held her wrapper. I am sorry, sister. We all are. Nneka felt her eyes sting. Not from anger. Not from revenge. But from the weight of a moment she never expected. The villagers watched in complete silence. The elders cleared their throats. We have discussed, said the oldest elder. And we have agreed. Nneka, daughter of Okri, you shall receive what should have been yours from the beginning. He turned to the brothers. Stand, all of you. They rose slowly. The elder continued, from this day, your father's land shall be divided again. This time into 8 shares, not 7. Nneka will receive her rightful inheritance. The crowd murmured loudly. Some gasped. Some clapped. Some simply wiped their eyes. No woman in Umuoho had ever been publicly granted inheritance before. But Nneka had forced tradition itself to bow, not through anger, but through character. Nneka stepped forward. Her voice was soft but steady. My brothers, I forgave you long ago. I chose kindness not because I wanted anything back, but because that is what our father taught me. And because you are my family. Obinna covered his face, overcome with emotion. Ikenna whispered, you are our blessing. Kelechi said, you held us together. When everything else fell apart, Chisom finished. Nneka looked around, at her brothers, the elders, the neighbors gathered under the hot sky. My father left me more than land, she continued. He left me wisdom. And wisdom is the wealth that never dries, even in the hardest drought. At that very moment, a cool wind swept through the village. People looked up. Clouds, thick, dark, and beautiful, rolled across the sky. Someone shouted, rain. The rain is coming. Then the heavens opened. The first raindrop fell on Nneka's cheek. Another landed on Chibik's shoulder. Then the sky burst into a roaring shower, heavy and full of life. People danced. Children screamed with joy. Mothers lifted their hands to the sky. Fathers ran to open their empty barns. Nneka stood in the rain, her family around her, their laughter echoing through the whole village. It felt as if the sky itself had waited for this moment, for pride to fall, for hearts to soften, for a family to reunite. From that day onward, the people of Umuoho told Nneka's story to every child born in the village. They said, true wealth is not land or barns. True wealth is kindness. A family that listens is stronger than any harvest. And a good heart can change even the hardest tradition. Nneka received her inheritance officially. But more importantly, she received honor. Her brothers visited often, not for food now, but for advice. Their farms flourished again. Her mother got well. And Nneka continued living with the gentleness and wisdom that had saved them all. Whenever people asked the brothers what wealth they admired most, they always answered the same thing. Our sister. She is the greatest inheritance our father left us. And in the quiet evenings, when the wind blew softly through the fruit trees she planted, Nneka would smile, knowing that the family once broken was now whole again.